Hello. Hey, y'all. Hey, happy marvelous Monday, everybody. I hope that you are well. I am super excited to join you today. The conversation is for landlords and property managers, and it's all about time saving strategies. I am going to provide solutions for those of you who are landlords, those of you who are property managers, as well as real estate investors. I'm excited. I'm Carissa Span, the landlord and tenant expert. This is what I do each and every Monday. I'm live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My mission today is very simple. It's to guide you through information, making sure that it's relevant and it is understandable. So, by all means, if you have questions, comments, remarks, or observations, please drop it in the comment section. Thank you so much. I see you coming in on the LinkedIn channel as well as YouTube. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Listen, I do want to let you know, I want to put this disclaimer in the air. Let me put it up on the screen for you. That information I'm sharing today is not legal advice. However, I always share the industry's best tips and practices. And today's segment is all about time saving strategies for those of you who are landlords or property managers. But let me take it a step further. This segment is also for those of you who own rental property, but maybe someone is managing your property for you. So I'm going to share information that I believe is going to help a lot of people today. So usually I share information for landlords, tenants, as well as the entire rental community. But today's episode is all about solutions for landlords as well as property managers. If you are watching the replay, thank you so much for tuning into on today. I promise that my goal is to educate you, to empower you, as well as to engage you. So again, if you have questions, comments, remarks, or observations, please don't be afraid. Drop it in the comment section. I'm going to get right into it because I do have a lot to share today. And again, I know that usually on Mondays, I'm sharing information for tenants as well. But I will say this, if you are a tenant, if you're tuned in today, if you're watching the replay as a tenant, and if you have questions, I think many of you know that I will answer those questions. So don't be a stranger. Go ahead and drop your comment in the comment box. So thank you again for tuning in. So let me get straight into it because I have a lot to unpack today. We are in 2025, and I know that this is the year where a lot of things are going to take a new shape, a new form. Things are going to look a lot different for a lot of people. So for those of you who are managing your own property or you're managing property for others, I know that filling vacancies sometimes can be a daunting task. It can be a headache. It could be a nightmare. I know that some of you who are investors, you rely on others to take care of that task for you because you understand how tedious that process could be. But listen, here's the thing: from filling vacant rentals to automating your rent collection processes to improving your day-to-day rental property management flow. This episode, I promise, is geared and designed to provide you with actionable items to help you save time, to reduce some of that stress. Because here's the thing, when it comes to rental property, managing property, it can be extremely stressful. And then also the segment is aimed to help you increase your profits. So again, any questions that you have, don't be a stranger. Let me know in the chat box. All right, so tonight I'm definitely going to share some strategies. So please make sure you're taking notes. If I'm going a little too fast, just slow me down. Let me know. I will repeat any information. If you're joining late, thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, so it's all about efficiency and filling those vacant rentals, because we know at the end of the day that vacant rentals don't pay rent. Bricks and mortar don't pay rent, right? So you also need to understand how critical it is for you to have a system whereby you are efficiently filling those vacant rentals. You want to make sure that you have a system in place to collect rent. And if you are, and I know that some of you have older systems, now is the time to possibly consider making it a lot easier to collect rent. So here's why I'm sharing that. I had I had someone who reached out recently, and their only method for their tenants to pay rent is by mailing payment in, whether by check or money order. And I thought that that was so interesting because there are a lot of online options. There are a lot of apps that some tenants can use on their phone, their laptop, their electronic devices to make paying rent a whole lot easier for them. So I just thought it was a little intriguing that they only had that method whereby tenants could pay their rent, money order, check. I'm sorry, not also failed to mention cashier's check. So those are three options for that owner to receive payment from the tenant. So when it comes to managing property, I do want people to know and understand that things are always changing. And property management, the rental property business is one of those industries that will evolve and continue to evolve. And so staying up to date with the current trends and the laws, which I'm not going to go into deep discussion about today, but you definitely want to make sure that you are on point, you're keeping up with the trends. You at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you have a system in place that helps you do all of these things. Okay, so let me get into filling those vacant rentals because I know that sometimes there are challenges when you have prolonged vacant rentals and how that impact your profits, right? So the first thing that you need to know and understand is that when you have those vacant rentals, and a couple of weeks ago, I think I went live on my one of my Facebook channels, and I did a live walkthrough advertising a 3-bedroom vacant rental in Washington, D.C. But here's one thing that I want you to know and understand. When you're looking to fill those vacant rentals, you want to make sure that you are creating attractive listings. You always want to use quality photos or videos. You want to make sure that you include a detailed description and highlight any of those key amenities that you know that people are interested in. Now, one of the things that I will say this when it comes to advertising, though, you want to make sure that you are not violating any fair housing laws. Here is an example of something that went incredibly wrong for a new owner. They were creating this wonderful marketing campaign. They were advertising their rental property, but here's where they made a mistake at. They used photos of European women only. It didn't include any other races or any other genders. And they ended up getting a nasty notice on the door because they, for whatever reason, they thought that that was okay. So they got a notice on the door, they got a knock on the door. Someone left a note on the door saying that they saw their advertisement online and it was discriminatory. And so they could not understand what happened and what went wrong. Here's the one thing that I would like to mention. When you're advertising your rental property, I would always only suggest to just show photos of the rental property. If you're going to include people, make sure that your advertising is inclusive of all people, all genders, different nationalities, so that people are not filing complaints against you, alleging that you have violated fair housing laws. And I know that sometimes it can be a little discouraging when you're trying to do the right thing. You're just trying to fill those rental properties, right? But there's a way to do it. And sometimes what you don't know can and will hurt you. And in that case, they learned the lesson the very hard way, the opposite of what they imagined. So again, you want to make sure that you are creating attractive listings when you're advertising that property. You want to always leverage technology. You can use various platforms. You can use social media. One of the things that I will say is this. You want to market where your prospective tenants are. So where do they hang out? Where do they live? What do they like to do? Where do they work? You want to advertise in those places whereby your prospective tenant, your your preferred tenant hangs out, right? You want to make sure that they see it. You also want to streamline that process. You want to make sure that the application process that you have, it is conducive for all people. You want to make sure that you are implementing an application and screening tool that is fair and is just for everybody. So sometimes when that happens, when you're trying to streamline your application process, I know that it can be a little challenging if you don't know where and how to do it. But when you do get into the rhythm of streamlining your application process, I would definitely say put some procedures in place, whether you're managing one or multiple units, put procedures in place so that you're following the same format time and time again, over and over and over. You want to make sure that you are doing things consistently and the same way with everybody. Okay. Another thing that I encourage owners to do is this: create some sort of incentive or an offer for tenants to move in. So maybe let's say you have this vacant rental or you have multiple vacants, right? And you're quickly trying to fill those rentals. Sometimes if you're offering some sort of concession or an incentive for them to move in, like a discount on the rent, or maybe you're willing to waive that application fee, or perhaps you're considering or are able to offer flexible lease terms. You want to consider doing those things because this will help you to quickly fill those vacant rentals. Sometimes people will rent your property just because they've seen the advertisement and it says no application fee. And the application fee may be 25, 35, 50, whatever your application fee is. You just may be surprised how many more people are inclined to submit an application and move in just because you are waiving, excuse me, those fees. Here's another thing. When it comes to rent collection, again, we know and understand how important it is to receive that rent payment. But the one thing that you don't want to do is have tenants who are paying rent late or maybe miss payments altogether, because that could create a financial strain, right? And so when you are using these online platforms, unlike the landlord that I told you about, whereas they only accept physical payment, check, cashier's check, or money order, right? Don't be so outdated. You want to make it easy for your tenants to collect, for your tenants to pay the rent, and you want to make it easy for yourself to collect the rent. Okay. So using online platforms is a lot easier for a lot of people because with just a click of a button on their phone or maybe on their computer, right? Tenants can pay their rent. And a lot of these platforms have now created a way for tenants to automatically send their rent payment. It's not even a thought. Maybe it comes out on the first or at the end of the prior month, right? So whatever platform you use, just consider how effective it is going to be for your tenants to pay you that rent money each month. You want to make sure that you are setting clear payment expectations. You always want to discuss before the tenant moves in. You want to discuss those lease terms up front, and you also want to include a late fee clause, because if the tenant is paying the rent late, is there a late fee? How much is the late fee? I know that some of you are not charging late fees because you're just good. You have a kind heart, and you really don't want to make it a financial burden for your tenant. But here's the thing. And although some of you are not collecting late fees, you are entitled by law, know what the law says, know what the maximum amount of the late fee you can charge, but you want to make sure that you put that clause in the lease. Because here's the thing, it's better to have it and not need it versus needing it and not having it. So let's say there's a landlord who never incorporated that clause in the lease. Okay. And then all of a sudden he decides he wants to start charging tenants a late fee, although he's never charged a late fee. It might be a challenge getting the tenants to buy in to paying a late fee that's not in writing. They were never informed. It's creating a lot of confusion. It's a lot of back and forth. You want to minimize that. And so you can see where this is going, right? Sometimes tenants don't understand why things are changing and they have not been informed. It's not in writing and it's not in a lease. So please make sure that you are creating that and you include that late fee clause in your rental lease agreements. You also want to consider automating those rent reminders. So if you are using text messaging or maybe you're using emails to communicate with your tenant, set it up so that it automatically go out to remind your tenants. So one of the things that I've incorporated and I've helped some of my clients do is this. They have an email campaign. They send out emails. And so by a set time of the month, the emails will go out. The text messages will automatically go out to say, hey, this is a reminder that the rent is due, or can you believe it? It's almost time for the rent payment to be made. Just kind of spruce it up a little bit, but send those reminders out. And I know that sometimes you can say, well, Carissa, why is that necessary? The tenants should know that they have to pay their rent. Well, yes, we know, but some reminders are always good because some tenants, they have busy schedules, they have busy lives. Maybe they intend to pay the rent by the first. But let's just say an emergency came up, something happened, right? Maybe they traveled, they didn't get back to the area in time, right? And because they got back late or something came up, they ended up paying the rent late. Whereas if you send a reminder, sometimes it's like, oh, well, yeah, my rent is due. Let me make sure that I get my rent into the landlord. Some tenants do appreciate those automatic reminders. So please automate those reminders and make sure that they are consistently going out. You want to create a buffer fund. So in other words, you want to build a safety net for unexpected rent payments because it can create a financial hardship when tenants are not paying their rent or they're consistently paying late, especially for some of you who have a mortgage or you have other expenses of the property, right? You want to make sure that that buffer is there to offset not receiving payments on time, or maybe the payments, like I said, are coming in a little delayed. All right, I know that I'm moving quickly and I'm going to come to your questions. I see your comment in the chat box, and thank you so much from that YouTube channel. You want to make sure that when it comes to your day-to-day management of that rental property business, that you streamline everything that you do. Listen, it can be overwhelming managing maintenance requests. It could be overwhelming managing all of those tenant communications for those of you who have large properties, you have multifamily properties. It could be consuming, so time consuming if you are conducting inspections and if you're doing them quarterly or if you're doing those monthly inspections. All those things could become overwhelming at times, right? So you want to streamline what you do to help your day-to-day operation. You want to make sure that you are centralizing your communication. Some of you do use property management software. Some others don't. But for those of you who are not using software, here's what I would recommend. And if you're using a property management software, let me know which property software works for you. Okay. Even if you're watching a replay, drop it in the comment section. If you are using a property management software, or maybe you've heard of a property management software, drop it in the comment section for me. I want to take a look at that. But when you are centralizing that communication, it could be, like I said, by way of that software, or perhaps you're using an Excel spreadsheet, or maybe I know some of you are still using notebooks and you're just writing everything down. Whatever you do, you want to make sure that you have one central place to track your communication with your tenant. When did they contact you? What was the date? Why did they contact you? You want to document all those things. because it's so important. And you want to respond to those tenant requests, which is why you want to keep a track of that communication. I know that as a property owner, as a property manager, as a landlord, as an agent, some days can be extremely hectic. Some days can be so overwhelming and so stressful that you may forget to follow up to a tenant's request. But I promise that when you put a system in place, okay, to remind you to follow up, usually that can minimize issues that tenants may have. So just promptly following up will definitely help you out a lot. You want to schedule routine maintenance. You want to proactively plan for those seasonal tasks. So like now we're in the winter season, right? But before the winter season, one of the things that I told all of my clients was to make sure they check those filters. Check it in the fall, check it in the spring, replacing those batteries and the smoke detectors. These are seasonal things that you want to do. You want to schedule a time to do it and also communicate that with your tenants. If you have to do gutter cleaning, just make sure whatever you're doing on a seasonal basis that you are scheduling it and you are sending that notification to your tenants. Now, I know that many of you are already conducting housing inspections, but you want to simplify the inspection process. You want to create a checklist for whether you go out or you have someone else to go out on your behalf. There are a lot of now mobile apps that you can use when you're conducting those housing rental inspections. And some of you are documenting it through inspection checklists that are printed out, and that's okay as well. But just make sure that you keep it simple. Don't make it complicated. And if you have others who are managing your property for you or conducting those inspections for you, you want to make sure that they are documenting, they are tracking, and they are also following up. So when it comes to housing inspections, if an inspection is taking place today, let's say there are 7 things wrong or 7 things noted from that inspection report. Do you have a process in place to go back to schedule repairs for the things that need to be repaired or renovated? Now, if it's tenant damage, when it comes to that rental inspection, have that conversation with the tenant, but then also give that tenant a timeline by which those repairs should be completed. Or if it's something that you have to pay for and the tenant is going to reimburse you. Whatever you're doing, just make sure that you keep it simple. Do not complicate it. I promise it does not have to be hard. Sometimes people make it a little bit harder than it has to be. But that's why we're having this segment today, so I can share some strategies and solutions to hopefully make it easier for more of you. And then ultimately, and at the end of the day, if it is, like I said, overwhelming, if it becomes stressful, you can always outsource any part of this whenever you need to. You can delegate tasks. You can delegate tasks such as your monthly reports, your weekly reports or repairs. You can have someone to do your bookkeeping or full service property management, because all of these things will save some time. All right, so let me go to my comment section here. Thank you so much for the YouTube channel. All right, here's the question, Carissa. Can you repeat the comment about inspections? Yes. So when it comes to inspections, again, you want to make sure that it is streamlined. You want to make sure that whether you're conducting a monthly inspection or a quarterly inspection, maybe an annual inspection, you just want to make sure that you are doing it consistently. All right. You want to make sure that you are documenting any issues. You want to also make sure that you are communicating with those tenants when you see things happening in that rental property, and then schedule those repairs promptly. So thank you so much for that. All right, so I did share quite a bit. I talked about filling those vacant rentals. I talked about rent collection, and I also talked about streamlining your day-to-day property management process. All right, so I do want to know, like I said, if you are currently using a property management software, let me know which software, which company you're using. All right, I see a comment here. Appfolio. That's a good one. So if you're a landlord, if you're currently using property management software, let me know which software you're using. Do you find it helpful? A lot of these software platforms are cloud-based. You can use it anywhere. You can be remote. You can be on vacation, and you can still go online to check what's happening in your property management software. So that is one good one. Thank you so much for that. So let me just do a quick recap for those of you who are just tuning in. And thank you so much for tuning in from the YouTube channel. I see you coming in. So I shared some strategies when it comes to filling those vacant rental units. You want to do it quickly. You want to do it effectively. You want to always create an effective and attractive property listing. And so you want to use quality photos. You want to make sure that any pictures that you're taking of that rental property, one of the things that is a big pet peeve of mine is when I see these pictures of owners, they are taking pictures of units that's not clean. You see a broom in the background, or it's dirty. You have paint cans laying around. That is definitely a no-no. Please, here is how I want you to think about it. You always want to create an image for your prospective tenants to see themselves living in that rental property. And if you are listing your rental property and you are showing pictures of a dirty place, most people can't see themselves living in filth. And it's also sending a red flag to them about you, because it may denote to them that, oh, well, they didn't care enough to clean the place up before they took pictures, so maybe they're not going to make repairs. You don't want to give a negative image. So please make sure that you're using quality photos. Make sure that if it's during the day, open the blinds, open the windows if you must. Get that light, that natural sunlight, or turn the lights on so that there are no dark rooms in those photos. You want to give a detailed description. Share as much information as possible. How much is the rent? How much is the security deposit? How much is the application fee? Will the tenants be responsible for paying utilities? Right? You want to identify and list amenities and any other things that you can think of. If it's a 2-bedroom in Petworth, if it's a spacious 3-bedroom in Columbia Heights, right? You want to identify in your description as much information as possible, because here's how I found that to be extremely helpful. I've run some very effective and efficient marketing campaigns whereby tenants didn't even see the place. They submitted applications based off of the thoroughness of the videos and the pictures and the detailed description that I just talked about. You always want to do that and highlight those key amenities, because sometimes, like I said, a tenant may submit an application just based off of those things alone. Now, yes, ideally they should see the rental property, but some will see the pictures if you do a great job. And if you're doing videos, really doesn't take much, but the cell phone, right? Just take your cell phone, record it, hold the cell phone sideways, record the video. You could do little small videos. You could use virtual videos. Whereas if you, for instance, for those of you who are comfortable doing this, and it's not a requirement, but if you do a virtual video, you can record the video for the tenant and you talk to them like, hey, Miss Smith, thank you so much for your interest in our 2-bedroom condo or our 3-bedroom townhouse. I'm going to just talk as I'm recording. And again, I'm keeping my phone sideways and I'm making it personal. And when I finish recording, I'm going to send the video to them. It's going to have all the information and all the details that they need to know about that rental business. That rental unit. You want to leverage technology, right? You want to make sure that you are using platforms and social media to target your tenant, because tenants are everywhere. They're online, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. There are so many streaming platforms, whether you're on Roku TV. I mean, there are so many platforms that you can use to target your prospective tenants. You want to streamline your process, your application process. It should be consistent. You should be treating everybody the same way. Use screening tools that's going to make what you do a lot easier. And then I also suggested to use some sort of incentive or concession, maybe a new move-in discount if a tenant, let's say for instance, you put your rental property on the market. It's what, the end of January, right? So let's say you are bringing your market online February the 1st, which is my birthday, by the way. So I expect some of you to come back later and tell me happy birthday. But let's say you're bringing your rental property online February the 1st. So you want to encourage tenants to maybe if they complete the application process and move in by the 1st, that you are willing to waive their application fee, or maybe you're giving $200 or $300 off the rent. That will be an incentive that will encourage them to possibly lease up a lot sooner rather than later. Because again, vacant rentals don't put no money in the bank. Okay. I talked about rent collection using online rent platforms. Don't be like the landlord that I shared where they only accept physical checks, physical payments only, check, cashier's check, or money order. Use those online payment platforms. Make it easier for your tenants to pay you your rent money a lot sooner. All right. You also want to set those clear expectations. The tenant should always know what the terms are upfront. And if you are not incorporating a late fee clause, you can definitely now consider that, especially for those of you who have vacant rentals. Look at what's in your lease. Look at any changes that you're going to make before the new tenants move in. Okay, you want to make sure that you are automating those reminders. Send tenants a reminder. Hey, the rent is due. Listen, one campaign I did in the summertime, I made it super cute and super fun. I used like pictures at the beach, like, hey, before you go to the beach, don't forget your rent. Don't forget your rent is due by the 1st. After the 5th, we're going to charge you a late fee. You can skip the late fees, just pay your rent on time. Like, just be creative and send those reminders, and you'll be surprised how helpful tenants will find that. Add a little humor to it, and just put a little spice to it. You want to make sure that you are creating a buffer in the event that your tenants are paying the rent late or maybe not at all, because you don't want to create a financial burden or allow a financial burden to happen because tenants are not paying the rent. Here's the thing that I know about property management. For so many people, things will come up, things will happen. Tenants will pay their rent late. Now, I know that some of you have tenants and they have never paid their rent late. Good for you. Bless your entire heart. There are a lot of other landlords and property managers who do not have that same story. They cannot honestly say that they've always collected rent on time from all their tenants. That's not their story. So you want to have a buffer in place. Now, when it comes to streamlining your day-to-day property management business, you want to have a way where you are managing those maintenance requests. You want to manage the tenant communication as well as inspections if you are conducting inspections. And I hope that many of you are. And if you're not, maybe you're going to consider doing them, not just once a year, not just twice a year. Maybe consider doing inspections at least every quarter. Get into those rental properties, know what the condition is, make those repairs, because at the end of the day, it is a business. That rental property is an asset, and you always want to protect your asset. Okay. So when it comes to managing the day-to-day operations of the property, you want to schedule routine maintenance. When are you going to make those repairs? When are you going to replace those filters? Is it your responsibility to change the batteries and the smoke detectors? Just schedule those things. Put it on your calendar. Give yourself a reminder so that you know around this time of the year, okay, we're getting ready to come out of the fall and go into the winter and now into the spring and now into the summer. You want to do these things in intervals on a schedule, right? So that's just a few tips that will help in that regard. When it comes to simplifying that inspection process, you can use a mobile app. You can use an inspection checklist, whether it's online with the app or print it, but just make sure that you are documenting everything that you see in that rental property. When you see something, say something to the tenant. Let them know if it's a tenant caused repair. Let the tenant know, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, based off of the inspection today, there's a hole in the wall. we're going to take care of it. But I just want to remind you that that is a violation of the lease. I'm going to highlight where it is located in the lease, that they are responsible for that damage, right? And then I'll let them know that we'll follow up with them to make sure that they know the costs for that repair. But I'm also going to make sure that it's taken care of versus saying, well, yeah, the tenant is responsible, so I'm just not going to do anything. That is, I promise, a bad business practice. I know that in the past, some people thought that that was a better way to do things. I promise it's not. But I'm not here to tell you how to run your business. I'm just offering some solutions and strategies. Okay. And then I also encourage you all to, when necessary, outsource any of those projects that you feel like are overwhelming or are too stressful, right? Or maybe just so time consuming. Delegate those tasks, whether it's reports, repairs, bookkeeping, or maybe you just need a full-time property manager, maybe a part-time property manager. Don't be afraid to seek the help that you need. So I do hope that this information was helpful today. I shared a lot really quickly, but I wanted to come and have this discussion, this segment with you today because 2025, like I said in the beginning, it's going to look different for a lot of people. Some of you are going to have tenants who are going to move out. New tenants are going to move in. And I want to make sure that at the end of the day, that you have strategies, that you have solutions to some of these problems that a lot of people struggle with. All right. And so I do hope that this information was helpful because that's what I desire to do, just to bring information, make sure that it's helpful, make sure that it's relevant, and then to also answer questions that you have. So I do appreciate you tuning in live. And I also thank you for those of you who are watching the replay. So next Monday, please make sure that you come back next Monday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to tackle some secrets to handling tenant disputes without stress. So definitely mark your calendar. Yep, I'll say it again. I'm going to tackle the secrets to handling tenant disputes without stress. I know that that might seem a little weird, but it's not, I promise. Come back next Monday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is where you can find me sharing that information. And so those of you who do not have my email address, let me provide you with my email address. I want to make sure that you can reach me when I am not live and online. All right. So here's my email address at the bottom of the screen there. Please feel free to email me. Ken, thank you so much for your email. I received your email about a week or so ago. I did announce that I'm going to do some live and in-person training, some workshops, and I will definitely keep you all posted. If you are interested in more information about live or virtual training, my workshops that I have coming up in this year, please feel free to email me. I want to make sure that I get you this information. So again, I hope that this was valuable. I hope that this was helpful. And please keep showing up. It costs you nothing but your time. I'm right here on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And by the way, if you have not already subscribed to my YouTube channel, please go to YouTube. Find me on YouTube. There you can find me at Landlord Lyfe. And subscribe, click that subscribe button so that you'll be the first to know when I am live and online. All right, so my time is up and I absolutely thank you for yours. It has been a fantastic pleasure having you to join me today. I did share a lot and it was all about landlords and property managers today. Okay. But I do know that this was helpful because I've gotten some feedback already. So thank you for the text messages that came in. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for showing up on YouTube. Thank you for showing up on LinkedIn. And thank you for showing up on Facebook. I'm Carissa Spann, the landlord and tenant expert, and I'll see you all next week. Have an amazing week on purpose.